Okay, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. And welcome to this webinar that Vanilla are hosting and I'm participating in. What I'm really keen to talk about today is how we can put together a complete journey for your members. Most people managing a community today have some idea of what they do. People will arrive, they will greet them, they might ask them to participate in an introductory discussion or all these really basic level tools. But this misses out on an incredible opportunity. And if you know some of my work, or if you know what we've done in the past, you might know that we've been studying this for years. In real depth, what causes people to continue participating in an online community? What does the research say? What are the things that we've tried that have worked and haven't worked? And what I want to do in this webinar is show you some of these things. Some of these tactics are tactics we've used for many of our clients over the years. And what I think we're very proud of is that over the years, we've got a pretty good track record of going into almost any online community and systematically putting in place activities or steps or systems to increase the level of participation or increase the value of that community or increase the level of growth in that community. And retention is the critical point. For years, we were wondering, what is the typical retention rate in an online community? How long do most members tend to stick around for? And there's some data around, but it's hidden in academic journals. Some vendors have their own data. We're not always sure if vendors are being completely upfront about some of their data. So beginning this year, we began a project, which is we scraped data points from a large number of mature online communities. And what we wanted to see is what's really going on. If we scrape all this data, if we analyze all the information, what does the data say is really going on? So we've gathered over 7 million data points so far, and this is rising. And based upon the analysis that we've done, one of the things that we've seen, and perhaps the clearest thing that we've seen, is that far too many communities have low levels of participation. As I recall, the median number of, the mean number of contributions per member, or the contributing members, tends to be around 300 to 500 for most kinds of communities, which means only 300 to 500 people in even some of the most mature online communities, even the very well-known communities that we could name. Those are the number of people that are participating. And what is the cause behind this? Why is this happening? The best answer we can come up with is that a lot of communities have churn rates that are either unsustainable or really, really close to being unsustainable. And by unsustainable, I mean that there are more members making their last contribution in your community than making their first. You're losing more members than you're attracting. And even if you're not, you're in a situation where most members don't make anywhere near as many contributions as they should. One of the first things we looked at was what is the median number of contributions in a community for all of the members in these communities we were looking at. And the numbers are shocking. If we put this in a histogram, as you can see here, what you should notice is that the majority of active members in a community, members that have made a contribution, only make one contribution in that community. Most of your members today, the people that you've spent so much time trying to attract, the people that you've committed so many resources to getting them and engaging in that platform and all those investments you've made, will make one contribution and will never visit again. But even this doesn't tell the full picture. The second thing we began looking at was, but what if instead of scraping from the post data, we looked at member profiles instead? What if we iteratively checked all of the URLs of member profiles in some communities and see how many members even make a contribution in the first place? And this is where the data gets even scarier. The data that we've seen showed that 75 to 90% of people that are registering for a community today don't participate at all. 75 to 90%. And there could be some good reasons for this. It could be there are a lot of people that come to a community to spam or to troll it, and those posts are removed. It could be some people just casually interested and they have to sign in. It could be some people use single sign-on, and some communities count all the customer base. There's a variety of reasons. But I think what's very clear here is that if we can shift this, if we can shift these numbers just a tiny bit, a really small shift here will double the number of contributions in most communities. Which means if you can really commit to what we're going to talk about today, if you can really put in place the interventions that we're talking about, you should be able to at least double the number of contributions in most communities. Because scaling most of your members from 1 post to 2 shouldn't be that difficult. And it's worth thinking quickly here about how much time and money and resources we spend in communities and where does it go. Most of us spend a huge amount of time and money on gamification, or we spend a huge amount of time and money on our MVP or the super user programs in that community. We commit a huge number of resources to the top members in that community. But in nearly all cases, the biggest possible win, the thing that's really going to move the needle for your community, is this beginner level, the people that are making just 1 post a day. How do we get people to make 1 post and then make a 2nd post? That's where the huge win is, and that's what we need. And to do that, we need a better member journey than we have today. If your journey is kind of vague, where people drift in and then you welcome them, or you send them to an introductory thread and then you hope after that they magically get fully engaged in a community, you're probably not achieving the level that you could be achieving. A lot of people, when they think about the member journey and they think of all the resources available to them, maybe email automations, maybe newsletters, maybe direct messages from the community manager, maybe on-site tutorials, maybe welcoming blog posts, they jump straight into the tactics and they start doing all the things that would seem to make sense. But don't jump straight into your tactics. If you were to look at all the communication channels you have, it's really easy to drop a different message into each of them. Sign up, get involved to share your expertise, or pin the introductory discussions to the top of a community, or create an on-site tutorial to educate members to all the amazing things they can do in your community. But resist the urge to do that, because this is very much a piecemeal approach, and it's confusing and overwhelming and is never the best experience. Instead, think strategically about the behaviors you need members to perform and what your members need from that community. What members need from a community changes over time. And that means the things we're communicating to them has to change over time as well. So think strategically about the behaviors that you need. And the first rule is to solve the immediate needs of your members. One thing I guarantee is that if someone makes a first contribution to your community and they don't get a good, quick response, they are almost never going to participate again. Or if they visit your community and it's not able to solve their needs, they're probably not going to participate again. And needs aren't what we think it is. If you look at most of the banners in most of the communities that are out there today, there's so many welcome to the community or share your knowledge and share your expertise. But people don't wake up each morning thinking, oh man, I just need a place to share my knowledge and be welcomed and connect with professionals like me. That's not realistic. Needs are about daily relevancy. We tried an experiment with a client, it was around January or February this year. And the goal was to find out, what do the needs of this community, what do the members of this community need throughout the day? And so we stole this idea from academics when they were checking how happy people are throughout the day by sending them a message, just giving them to rate on a scale of 1 to 10. And we had, I think, a few dozen people that signed up for this. And throughout the day, they received an automated email. Just ask them, what do you need today? What are the things that you need right now? And the answers were incredible. So for sure, there were some people that even though they opted into it, their response was, I need you to leave me alone. Fair enough, we didn't contact those folks again. but the other people were incredible. People that would wake up in the morning and they would say things like, I need to get dressed, I need to figure out what to wear to work for my meeting today, I need to figure out how to avoid traffic today, I need to figure out how to check in for my flight today. This content might not sound interesting for a community, but think of the opportunities that it creates. And then throughout the day, it was I need to persuade my boss to do something. It was I need to get my proposal done. It was I need to figure out how to get colleagues on my side. I need to figure out what to have for lunch. I need to schedule a meeting. I need to get people all on board at the same time to meet at the same location. It was I need to figure out which vendors that I can trust. There were all these things that were more specific, far more specific than what the community was even offering at the time. What the community was offering, and this is the same for most communities, it was a community that's saying you can attract more clients, you can connect with the top experts, solve your problems, you can attend upcoming webinars. These were the kinds of things that they were promoting. But when we actually looked at the needs of members, it was far more specific than that. Yes, they did want to attract more clients, but what they needed today was a template of a proposal. Yes, they were vaguely interested in connecting with top experts, but what they needed today was to find a couple of people who had been through their specific situation in the past. They need to know exactly who has been through that situation in the past, and so they can reach out to them and get some good advice. And it was solve your problems, but the problems were usually more specific. And what we tried to do is list like the top few so people would know exactly what they can ask about. It doesn't mean it covered every possibility, but it gave people a much clearer idea of what this community is about and how it tackled the needs. And yes, you can attend upcoming webinars, but we found being far more specific achieved a lot better results. And as you go down this list, you see that being more specific is better. Solving the daily needs of your members, instead of appealing to grand ambitions, in our experience, has always achieved better levels of engagement than any other approach. Even things like finding the top 5 people, even things like finding the top 5 people in your industry or your sector, people that have been through it, asking in the community and building up a list of just a few people that have solved the most common problems, and then having a place where people can contact them and reach out. That's a massive win. Now, the goal of all this is to make your community a place that people go to several times a day. The goal of all this is to make sure that whenever members have an issue at work, or whatever members are dealing with, and I'm assuming this is a work-based community, but whatever members are dealing with throughout their day, your community is their first port of call to solve it. And even if you can't take our approach and message a bunch of members every hour or 12 hours of a day, you can still ask a couple of questions to really get to the bottom of what your members need today. 2 of the ones that we've found by far the most effective is first, what is frustrating your members today? What are your members frustrated about? And second, what do your members spend most of their time doing? These 2 things tend to lead into very similar kinds of activities. So it might be looking for examples from others. It might be finding reliable vendors that they can work with. It might be feeling overwhelmed with too much work to do. It might be colleagues that aren't doing what they're supposed to do. Or if you look at what members spend most of their time doing, it might be today writing a proposal in meetings or writing a press release, all these kinds of activities. But once you have this information, it becomes really easy to see how you can turn this into content or discussions or activities within a community. So you can provide a list of examples sourced from your members, have that as a blog post or a discussion that's pinned to the top, something that's always valuable to members. You can have a list of recommended vendors and reviews of them. We did this a while ago with our website. We found that people were always looking to know which vendor to use, so we created a list, or not a list, we created a tool where people could compare the different vendors and pick the right option for them. If members are overwhelmed with too much work, you can create a guide to reducing workload. One of our first communities back around 2012, 2013, sometime around that, was a community of teachers. And they had been a consultant in before us who had essentially just walked away from the project And she had said, it's not possible to build a community because teachers are just too busy. And all of the survey data, that's what it said. The interviews that we conducted, when teachers even had the time to do the interview, said exactly the same thing. The community sounds like a good idea, but I'm just overwhelmed with work. I'm far too busy. And what happened here is everyone had missed the most key insight, the most important insight from all this data. And what we did was created a community for teachers to share their time-saving tips. And suddenly, teachers found the time for it. And the community is still going today. And that is one of the things that you can do when you really understand what members need. It becomes a little easier to design your content, discussions, or activity to solve those needs. Likewise, if colleagues aren't doing what they're supposed to do, you're going to ask your members to share their stories of getting colleagues on side. And things like writing a proposal, you can have proposal templates in your community. They're spending a lot of time in meetings. You can have meeting tips and agenda guides. If people are writing a press release, you can have 10 examples of great press releases in your field. Once you really know what members need, it becomes a lot easier to start figuring out what activities are going to be in that journey that we're going to put together in a second. And one of the best things you can do is take these needs and map them into distinct topic areas. And that will look a little bit like this. So most communities, especially say in the customer support space, just tackle that bottom left box here, which is members have a problem and they need a solution now. And once they get that solution, they leave and they don't need to come back unless they have more needs to solve. So it could be that, yes, members need a template to write a sales proposal, but they also have career goals. They also have other needs within that topic as well, as we've just seen. So the career goals might be, I have a salary negotiation next week and need advice. This is exactly the kind of information and the kind of content discussions that your members can really help with. It's exactly the kind of content that most communities or most people can't get from anywhere else. They might even have some lifestyle questions, some off-topic questions that you can initiate, such as, can anyone recommend a good equipment vendor for stationery? Just a random example, but you get the idea. When you expand that horizontal bar on the bottom, when you satisfy more of your members' needs, members will visit your community more often. And the whole purpose of this is to make your community the go-to place to solve their everyday challenges. Because if your community isn't the go-to place to solve their everyday challenges, your members won't go to it every day. And if your members aren't going to that community every day, it never becomes a habit. And if it never becomes a habit, it's really hard to have a sustained level of engagement. So the first thing we need to do is figure out what members really need and make sure we're satisfying as many of those needs as we possibly can within that community. We'll talk a little about how we put that into a journey, but first we need to figure out how we keep members there. The second rule to talk about is that members usually, in most cases, join to satisfy a need, but they stay to satisfy their desires. When you look at members who have gone beyond 1 or 2 posts, they're not just satisfying their needs anymore. They're beginning to satisfy their desires. And the communities with the highest levels of per member participation that we looked at were those that did the best job at satisfying desires. One of the communities with the best retention rates was Sephora here. And what you notice about Sephora is that yes, they do satisfy needs, but by its very nature, they are satisfying the desires of members to look better and feel more connected to one another. It's a community worth spending a little bit of time just looking at. So this raises another question, which is, how do you know what members desire? One of the simple things to do or things to look at or consider is figure out why members want to solve the problems that they identified. Those needs that we talked about before, why do members want to solve those needs? Or why do members need those things? And if we look at this horizontal bar at the bottom again, you can start thinking about what is the desire, the underlying desire that drives each of these things. So yes, people are getting paid, but they're getting paid to do a lot of things. There's usually a desire that's based upon an emotion. And that emotion might be a sense of fear of losing their job. It might be a drive to be better at what they do, but there's always an underlying emotion component to this. So members might need a template for a sales proposal, but what they desire is they want to feel like they made an impact and close difficult sales. They like the sense of challenge. They might want information about a salary negotiation or to get advice, but what they really want might be to feel like their career is progressing in the right direction. Likewise, they might want a good equipment vendor for stationery or whatever, but their desire might be that feeling they want to feel like a true professional. They want to look good. And once you build your community and incorporate the ideas of desires, build your community around these desires, you find that there's a reason for people to visit, not just when they have a need, but it helps them quench those desires. And to figure out what those desires are, we often have to ask desire-based questions. And there might be questions like, where do members want to be in 6 weeks' time? There hasn't really been a great question that really nailed this, but we found 6 weeks' time often reveals the kinds of desires and content discussions that we want to be looking at. So instead of just going to the community when there's a problem, it's a community they go almost every single day because it can help them be better at what they do. So in 6 weeks' time, it might be completing their first project or to feel more respected at work, negotiating a pay increase again, or be featured in a local publication. But then again, you can figure out what content, discussions, or activities you're going to have. You can ask your members, what do you wish you knew when you were completing your first project? And this is a great question because it challenges the veterans in your community to share their knowledge and expertise, and it's incredibly useful for your newcomers as well. Likewise, gaining your boss's respect, what did you do really specifically? You can do a salary survey as well. You can get members to share what salaries that they're on in an anonymous way, obviously, and provide a tool where members can benchmark themselves and see if they're on the right track. So whatever those desires are, there's a range of different ways that you can satisfy and quench those desires. And again, communities with the highest level of participation per member were those that satisfied those desires. So we want a list of not just the needs of members, but their desires as well. Third, and the third rule we're going to cover, is top members seek to create and refine their identity. In every community, you need a group of top members. You often don't need many, often a dozen is just enough. Even some of the larger communities, even the largest communities only have a few hundred. And these are communities with millions of members around the world. The average tends to be around 5 to 25, I think. But why they're participating so much is usually a sense of identity. The community has become part of their identity and they're seeking to create and refine that identity. And again, here we can go back to their desire, and often we can consider what's really driving that desire. It might be that the desire is what it is and there's no underlying reason for it. But what we usually find is there's an identity that they want to belong to a certain group, or they want to feel accepted and appreciated by a certain group, or they want to impress a certain group, or they want to move to a better group, or feel accepted by an even more exclusive group, for example. So members might want to feel like they can make an impact and close difficult sales, as you can see here, but they might also want to feel accepted and appreciated by top sales professionals. This might be what really drives them. They might want to feel like their career is progressing in the right direction, but that might be because they want to impress their peers with their rapid progress. They might want to feel like a professional in their field because they just want to feel like they belong to a group of professionals as part of their identity. You don't need to fill out every single box in this. We've done it here as an example. But it's good to get a sense of what is the identity that your top members hold. And you can ask questions again here, such as who do you admire? Who do you consider your peers? Who do you feel is doing similar work and activities to you? And the answers again might be things like authors of books in this field, or founders of large companies selling relevant software in this field. In this example, it might be sales professionals at similar organizations, and it might be colleagues that work on your team. And when you get a sense of what this identity is, you can use that to start planning out a list of activities and content and discussions that we'll show you in just a second. So you should be able to do this now. You should, at the very least. Once you've gone through this process, which will take you a couple of weeks at least, you should be able to plan out a clear list of activities at each of these levels. So here's an example I've been using recently. Imagine that you work for a company that sells DIY equipment, home base, or whatever the US equivalent is. If you're looking at the needs level, a typical discussion in a community like this might be, hi, I want to drill a hole to put up a shelf and don't know what drill bit to use. And the content might be the ultimate guide to drill bits. And the challenge might be sharing this guide and earning points. And the activities might be an ask me anything with your drill bit expert, Bob drills a lot. These are all needs. These are all based on needs that members know they have today. But if you go to the desire level, where you go from the problem to the opportunity, why do they want to drill a hole in the first place? Yes, they want to put up a shelf, but why do they want to put up a shelf? Probably because they want to create a room which looks good. And then you can start thinking about discussions and activities and content on this level. So it might be, I want to create a room which looks good. What are your tips? It might be the top 10 interior design tips shared by your members. It might be a activity, a 24-hour challenge, design your top file holder in 24 hours. So these are all based around opportunities. You see this with sites like Pinterest and maybe in Instagram as well. The most addictive sites we go to aren't just those that solve the problems we have. I mean, Facebook generally doesn't solve the problems we have, or Twitter or any of those channels. But they're about the opportunity and then the identity. And even identity, you can start thinking about the discussions, the content, the challenges and activities that are going to really excite your members. To feel a sense of identity, people have to know who the other people in that tribe are, who their peers are. They have to have opportunities to impress their peers as well. And this is where the big opportunity is. So here might be, who are the top creative interior designers in the world, or vote for your interior design of the year, or having a live webinar with some of the top interior design experts. But you can see really clearly here how you move from the need, the problem, to the desire, the opportunity, and then the identity, which is the sector. So now we know what members need. We have an idea what they desire. The next question is, what do you need? Just giving members what they want might lead to a very highly engaged community, but is any of that engagement really important for you? Because what we need to do is connect this participation, connect all this activity and all this goodwill and all this energy that we're creating, and harness it in a way that's going to be useful for our goals. One of the problems that drives me nuts in so many of the strategic plans I've seen through our courses and some of the clients we've had in the past is that their plan of action seems a little bit like this, which is step one, we're going to drive a huge amount of engagement. We're going to have events and activities, commitments, curves, ask me anything, trending topics, working out loud, lots of discussions. Step two, to use a South Park expression, is that box with a big question mark in it. Then step three, they're going to achieve the result, which might be call deflection, retention, success, ideation, advocacy, lead generation, whatever. And the big question is what happens in this mysterious box here? Sure, a lot of engagement might lead to the results you want, but that's kind of hoping it does. And it's very easy to have a highly engaged community which doesn't really achieve much value for you. And what we need to do is take any of the goals we have for our community and put all of the things we just discussed aside for a second. Forget about the needs of your members, desires, all that kind of thing for a second. But think about the goals of your community and what are the very specific behaviors you need members to perform to achieve those goals. So for call deflection, for example, you need people to ask questions, or usually you need your newcomers to ask questions, and then you need smart members to answer them. For success, you need people to share expertise, and you need people to read the expertise. For lead generation, you might need people to create relevant content that people find in search engines, and you need people to consume that content or to download it and subscribe by email and whatever else will identify them as a lead. For innovation, you need people suggesting ideas and other people refining and voting on those ideas. Whatever your goal is, you have to turn it into the specific objectives that are going to achieve your goal. Because we're not just going to give members what they want. We're also going to slip in the calls to action in a way that's going to most benefit them. I talked about this a little bit in my webinar with Vanilla last year and some of the other talks I've done, which is we need to segment the calls to action, all the things that we just talked about, the things that drive the goals, by the activity segment of members. One of the challenges that you know from most communities is that if you ask, say, all of your members tomorrow to contribute a blog post to that community, you might have a large number that actually do it, but realistically, you're probably going to have 2 or 3 that do it, and everyone else is not going to bother. And that means you've spammed most of your members to get those 2 or 3 people, or 5 people, or 10 people, or even whatever, to share those blog posts. And that means most of your members are less likely to read your emails next time. And that's the problem with treating your members as one big homogeneous group. What we want to do instead is use a table like this to make sure we're only asking members to do the things they had the skill, the motivation, and the time to do, or the skill and experience, the motivation and the time to do. So for example, if I'm asking you a question about how to fix my iPhone, if you're an Android user, if you've never used an iPhone or whatever, you're never going to know the answer. It doesn't matter how nicely I ask the question or how frequently or what automation rules I use. If you don't have the expertise to answer the question, you're not going to be able to do it. Likewise, if I'm asking you to volunteer to become a moderator in my community, if you didn't have the time to do that, if you've, say, just had kids or you've got a second job or there's a lot going on in your life, it doesn't matter how nicely I ask you to do it, you don't have the time to do it. So the challenge then is to figure out how you can segment your members into the right groups and then make sure you're only asking them to do the things they have the time to do. So for example, if you've got lurkers in your community, the reason why they lurk probably isn't because you haven't engaged them well enough or you need a lurker week or any of those kind of things. It's usually because they don't have the experience and motivation or the time to participate. And the best thing you can do here is not try and turn a lurker into an active participant, but to turn your lurkers into the best lurkers that they can be. And by the way, I think a learner is a better term than a lurker. Likewise, someone that's new to a community, if you see right at the bottom here, they might not have much time, they might not have much experience, but they're highly motivated to get an answer. So the best thing they can do is to ask a question. And so what we try to do with clients and people that take our course is to really figure out how we can segment the users into different groups and then make sure we're assigning each group to do the right thing. The best tool we've seen for using this is LucidChart. So if you go to lucidchart.com, it gives you an easy way to create great diagrams just like this. So now for this client, they had a customer group and a developer group. And now based upon what they've done in the past, we can write software, we can figure out a way to get all of them into a group that we can work with. So whether they are a learner, whether they're a first-time contributor, whether they're a top contributor. And once we got them into these kinds of groups, it becomes really easy to figure out what the right calls to action are. So for example, if a typical example here, segmenting might have people that make 12 contributions a group are like the top members. So the useful behaviors we want from them are to share blog posts or reports or articles on running better events. This is a very specific example. For people that make, say, 3 to 12 contributions a month, we know they probably don't have time to write a full blog post, but maybe they can share their challenges and maybe they can tell us what kind of advice that they need. Likewise, the lurkers or learners and the newcomers, maybe we just want them to sign up to attend webinars and to submit the details to download resources created by the community. They're identifying us as possible leads now. And visitors, maybe we want them to read the top posts created by members. By the way, one of the things that gets overlooked is if you're asking members to create content in that community, it's only valuable if people read the content. And sometimes we spend far too much time in getting people to create content instead of helping lurkers or visitors, the people that often make up 80 to 90% of the traffic, read that content. If you know, for example, that your learners only read, say, 3 articles a month, how can you make sure that they are reading the best 3 articles a month? Maybe you just want to send them 1 digest a month with the top 3 articles on, because that's the best contribution they can make. They're still going to learn from that, they're still going to get great value from that, and then you're not spamming them with things that they're never likely to do. So we're moving really fast now, but hopefully you can get the slides or maybe watch this webinar a bit later again. But what we need to do now is take these calls to action that we just looked at, the things we need our members to do to create real value, and mix it with the things that members need and that they desire as well. And this is where we start to get the persona journeys. As you're seeing, we might have a different persona journey for customers and developers, or people at different groups, from first-time contributors to top members. But for now, if you're just getting started in doing this right, just begin with one single journey, because this will have a huge impact. And we can separate this into two areas: people that are just getting started and people that have already been in the community for a while. And a typical journey, if you're just getting started in a community, tends to look like this. You have the discovery phase, the registration phase, the first contribution, and then some sort of sustained participation that might involve gamification, MVP, and all those right things. And within each of these, you have really clear steps. So first, they become aware of the community, they browse it, have reason to join, they go through the registration process, they ask their first question, they get a response, etc. And what we used to do for a long time was to then put this all into a series of communications and calls to action by different channels. So you can see here we have a series of emails that would go out to each group. We had on-site calls to action. We had weekly emails. But recently we've been changing that. We also began using all of the communication channels as well. We had an automation series calls to action. We put a big inventory of all the ways we could communicate with members. And then we started figuring out what needed to be in each one. And we looked at this, we had this slide before as well. But the problem with this is that it doesn't clearly show an overview of what's going on. So for that, I recommend a different tool. One of the tools we've been using recently is called Smaply, which is smaply.com. And what this allows you to do, and what I love about this tool, is that it lets you really visualize your user's experience. It's a really simple tool for making a user journey that looks fantastic. And as you can see here, you can create a whole user journey, the emotional value, what you need at each time. And there's lots of different options that I can't fit onto a single slide here. So if I go deeper in, say, what a newcomer journey would look like, you can start seeing how much extra work you can do to get it right. So a typical journey might be first, a member becomes aware of the community. So how do they become aware? It might be through SEO optimization on search traffic. You might want to consider investing more in that. It might be through the placement of the community on the homepage. It might be promotion to the communities via email, or it might be via social ads. You can usually attract a new member for $1 or $2 a time, per member, I mean. So if you're not getting enough members to join in the first place, you can optimize this stage. You can really think about how you can improve, get more visibility for the community, do better promoting the community, etc. Once they're aware of this, the second step is usually to browse the community for the information that they need, or to find something interesting. It varies a little bit. So here you need a clear value proposition for that community. Here you need to display what's the latest and interesting content in that community. Here you might also want to use federated search that will retrieve information from different databases, or cognitive search using machine learning to show what members are most likely to need. You might also make sure that questions are really show if they have an accepted answer or best answer or not. You might invest more time on these things. And then the third step is a reason to join. Not everyone will get to this step, but this is a step where members find a reason to join that community. And this requires a couple of things as well. One is a clear option to search for content. I don't want to repeat, but a search engine is good here. Coveo or some of the others, Search Unify and the other ones that are out there are usually pretty good tools. And then they sign up for the community if they can't find the answer to the question. You'll notice here, if we go back, that the emotional states of members usually quite low until they start participating in that community. And that's usually because what drives them to the community is a sense of frustration or problems that they want to resolve. And then they hit the registration form on the far side there. They complete that form. This means you can optimize it by doing better with social sign-on or simplifying what this journey looks like. All these kind of things are useful. But then if we go to the other side of this, what's the next thing they get is a confirmation email. So now you have to make sure the confirmation email has a clear subject line which won't fall into the spam filter. And then members will click the confirmation link, so you have to make sure that the link is dead simple, easy to find, and as little clutter as possible. And then they become a participant. They make their first contribution in that community. And that means you need a couple of things here to optimize. You need a clear call to action to ask communities on the site. It helps to have a list of unanswered questions, because not everyone's going to ask a question, but some people will reply to existing questions. You might want to have a direct message from a community manager, an on-site tutorial, to guide members to their first question or their first contribution, or a place where they can give their first response. One of the things we looked at was whether members that make their first contribution asking a question or a response stayed around for longer. And I think that members that began their first contribution with a question, I think it's around like 25 to 30% more likely to stick around for 10 contributions, etc. So that should inform what you do some more. And then after that first contribution, they need to get a good quick response. They need usually a sub 24-hour response. And it also helps if their question is marked as a best answer as well. And the response they get should be full of empathy. Not just you didn't read the instructions or you didn't search for all the information on this website before, but it should be something that really clearly is a response that they can work with. A response that understands their situation, that understands the frustration they're going through, and makes them feel smart for asking the question. So what we've covered so far doesn't really require that much in the way of needs. You might drop it into the first contribution or the response here, but it's a fairly standard newcomer journey. And even this, before we go into anything else, you can optimize this in a major way, as we've seen here. But now, if you want members to stick around, you need to really start satisfying their needs fast. Then you have to satisfy their desires and then their identity throughout the community journey. And this is where more and more you start putting your calls to action in. We're not doing multiple personas in here, but you'll get the sense of what we're looking at. So for example, a newcomer to that community, the first thing you might want them to do is to consume the best articles in that community, say the top 3 articles that have ever been created. So this, when you think about it practically, means you need an automated email that goes out listing the top 3 articles. These are the 3 articles that get you up to speed right now on the biggest challenges that most members face. You might have an on-site call to action or tutorial showing where to find the best resources in that community. Then you might ask them to join a newcomer group in that community, just designated for them, where they can ask their beginner level questions and get help from mentors in that community. We've also found, by the way, that people love to be mentors of newcomer groups. We've been doing this for a couple of years now, and it's been incredibly successful. So now you've got to think about, okay, we need to set up that group for newcomers. We need an invite email that goes out after 48 hours. We might need a direct message from the community manager or mentor to join. And once you plan it out, just as you can see here, it becomes really easy to see exactly what the whole workload looks like and what you need to improve. And then, as you can see before, we might do that career progress check. Because someone that's new to a community doesn't know how they compare to everyone else. So you might have a email or reminder or something that goes out and says, hey, why don't you share, anonymously what you're earning now, and see how you compare to the other members in that community. And we found this to be quite engaging as well. But now you need to figure out how to do that. That second bar there showing all the requirements is, invite members to submit their salary and career level, initiate discussions for members, find recruiters to answer questions that members might have. Because once people get the response, why not ask them to sign up for the upcoming webinar on careers and your topic, or watch a historical video in that topic. So you can record that webinar on career progressions and share it with everyone else. And then you can follow up with top members as well. Follow top members as well. So at this stage, you might want to get them feeling a slight sense of identity. And the best way of feeling a sense of identity is getting them to follow your top members, getting them to learn who is the the top of that field, what they're talking about, what they're interested in, and then they can start to feel a sense of community. Now, some platforms will let you follow someone within that platform and create a custom feed like Facebook, but alternatively, you might just want to have a Twitter list of your top members that anyone can follow the entire time. Even though the community isn't solely based on your platform, they're still feeling a greater sense of connection and affiliation to one another. And you can see here, you need an email to follow those members, on-site calls to action, where to find it. You need targets, there's targets of desire to really build that identity. And then this isn't the whole process, but then they start becoming a regular and a super user. And now again, you can see how we're dropping more of these needs, more of these calls to action, more of these desire points into that process. We might start looking at the community digest curated by the community manager as the top contributions each time. We might ask members to share their work. What is something that you're working on at the moment? As you get more engaged, we want you to share your blog posts and your field reports and all these fantastic things. So you might have a template for them that they can use for that. What have you done? What's the problem? What did you try? Did it work or did it not work? These kinds of things are incredibly valuable for members. Then you might want to be promoting that in digests and field reports and social channels, all these kind of things. But at the very least, if I just go back a slide, you should have a journey that looks at least a little bit like this, where you're taking members through the discovery phase, the registration phase, the participation phase, and if we go more in depth, to the newcomer phase, and then the regular and the super user phase as well. Even if you haven't done this before, you can start mapping out what this looks like. You can go to smaply.com, start playing around with it, and it's a tool I've really loved recently. So begin with just one persona, and once you become comfortable with that, add more personas over time. You might have one for customers, developers, resellers, or any other audience that is relevant to you. You can divide it up by different segments that you use. You can go more in depth in some areas, but it's a really powerful tool. And your member journey is never really complete as well. It's always something that you're continually measuring, continually updating, and you're always tweaking it as you progress. And that's what we need to be doing here. We need to make sure this isn't a journey that's ever going to end. Because I think designing the right kind of member journey is one of the most powerful things that you can do in your community. And you have to know what the needs are of your members. You have to know what the desires are of your members. You have to know what the identity of your top members really feels like. And then you have to know what your calls to action are. And then you can start planning out what that whole journey looks like, what the segments are, and all those kinds of great things. And what we've been trying to do with clients and course participants and all the people we've worked with over the years is really go in depth in these things. Because we've seen just a small amount of movement here, from moving the majority of members from one post to two, has a colossal amount of value in terms of extra participation, extra levels of engagement, and achieving our goals for that community a heck of a lot faster. So thank you so much for listening to the webinar. I really appreciate it. Just to wrap up some resources that might be useful for you. FeverBee.com, all the blog posts from over a decade now that we've been doing this. Smaply.com I definitely recommend for planning out your user journey. There's other tools as well, but I found Smaply to be most useful for what we need. Likewise, Lucid Charts I like because it integrates with Google Docs really well, so I recommend that for your segmentation and decision trees and those kind of things. And also, if you go to FeverBee.com/strategy, you can get a great resource there for learning how to put a full strategy together. And then if you go to ondemand.feverbee.com, we have courses that can really help you take your game to the next level. And you can also get the books Buzzing Community and the Indispensable Community. So thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your time. And if you can drop me a line at any time that you like, Richard@feverbee.com. Thank you very much. Goodbye.